Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small Adventure Travel Podcast. Happy to have each and every one of you back here today. Today, we have a wonderful guest coming to us from South America, specifically in Quito, Ecuador. Macarena is so happy to have you here. And it's Macarena Iturralde, and you're the CEO of Senderos Naturales, see?
Correct, yes.
See, I jump in with the Spanish right away with that name. So happy to have you here. It's a wonderful pleasure to have you join us.
My pleasure as well. Just for a little introduction, I've been the CEO of Senderos Naturales for 24 years. Pretty much I was a naturalist guide in the Galapagos Islands, the rainforest, Peru, and Patagonia. And I decided to open my agency because I had 3 children and somebody had to stay at home. So that's how the agency began, and that's how it's been.
It can be a bit of a challenge to have young children and be out spending all your time out in the field with your clients. And I get that completely. And I'm really curious, and you gave a little bit of background there. I really appreciate that. And I want to go back a little bit further and figure out, Macarena, how did you get this passion? How did you even get into this adventure travel business? So how far back do you want to go? When's your first memory that you think impacted your life direction? Actually,
my first memories come from when my dad used to wake up at crazy hours of the morning, like 4 a.m, and say to my mom, "Hey, let's go to the beach." And we were 8 of us. 8 children. Oh. And my mom would call us on the intercom and say, "Get ready, we're going to the beach." And so everybody had to run, pack a few little things in our backpacks. We had the tents, we had the cooking stuff for camping, and we will always have these most incredible adventures because we will travel from the highlands of Ecuador down to the coast. And sometimes we had problems with the car and we had to wait for hours or landslides. And then we will arrive to the beach. And what my mom did, she normally found fishermen to cook for us. So they will set the tents and then we'll go to the nearest fisherman and they will cook for us. And so she would avoid having to cook except breakfast.
That sounds pretty clever. Your dad, and I suspect also your mom, but your dad sounds very spontaneous type of personality. Was he spontaneous like that in every area of his life?
Well, he was an architect. He loved designing and building, but he was spontaneous in everything he did. And I think I have a lot of that in me because when we travel, I'm always into the adventure. My children say, "Oh no, one of mom's trails again or roads again," because I say, "Oh, this one is closed. I'm going to take this other one." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I am." There's been times when I've had to cross a railroad and a bridge because the roads have been closed, and I said to the children, "Nothing is going to stop me. We're getting home." And we've done it. And my dad was like that.
That's very cool. And what did your mom think of that? What was, sometimes that can create stress in relationships when you've got one person that's, "Okay, come on, let's go." And
Was she on board with everything?
Oh, she was the biggest fan of my dad, and she was always going for it. And they were raising 8 children, and
Yeah.
we are all very close together. And she will put everything together, make us a quick breakfast, everybody in the car, and off we went. And so that was an amazing match, because all along they took us. They couldn't take us abroad. They couldn't take us to the United States or Europe because we were too many. But they took us exploring. We explored the rainforest. We explored the coast of Ecuador and the Andes of Ecuador, which are so fascinating. So I'm so grateful for the my childhood. It was full of adventure, and that was imprinted in me. And
Absolutely.
when
I'm curious, what was your, I guess you call it birth order? Were you the oldest, youngest, somewhere in the middle?
Number 7.
You were number 7. Wow. And with 8 kids in the family, I can imagine a mix of different personality types. And where did you fit in? What was your, sometimes you've got somebody who's the troublemaker, someone that's the boss, someone that's the this, the that. So if I were to speak with your siblings and say, tell me about Macarena, what was she like as a kid in the mix? What would you say? What do you think they would tell me?
Actually, I was very responsible, precocious little girl. I organized and did everything on my own. I was very independent, but that's because life makes you be. If your mom is working and your dad is working, and you can't expect others to do it for you. So I was very independent since I was very, very little, and not quite a troublemaker, but a fighter. I was always a fighter because I had 6 siblings that will bully me. So it was like.
Okay, I can imagine that. You mentioned your mom working as well. I mean, just raising 8 kids would be a tremendous amount of work. Was she also had other projects outside the house that she was working on, or what did that look like?
My mom, after, I think when my sister Alegria was born, she's right before me, my mother realized that they needed to work, both of them, outside the house in order to provide us with good education. And so she worked for a supermarket chain. She started in the cashiers, then she moved up to be the manager of the one supermarket. Then they moved her to be the manager of the warehouses. And then she was the CEO of the company. Yeah, she was amazing.
Cow.
Yeah. But there's one thing that I must say. In Latin America, you can hire help. And so we did have a lady that looked after us and cooked for us and cleaned the house. In fact, I called her, she was my second mom. So I called her Mami Lita. I baptized her as my second mom as well.
Okay. That's very cool. So your siblings, did any of them go into adventure tourism or guiding or anything, or are you the only one?
Actually, I'm the only biologist in the house and adventure traveler. All the others love to travel. All the others, like my eldest brother, he loved going fishing and hunting. And most of my brothers, we're 4 brothers and 4 sisters. And most of my brothers are into either motorcycling, biking. So they're all into an activity that implies adventure. If it's not fishing, it's biking, my youngest brother has a company, Comencal. He has the electric bikes, and he organizes trips around Ecuador on the bike. So that's beautiful. I love that. I love doing that. So it's interesting because all my nephews and nieces, which are many, they are either mountain climbers, rock climbers, adventure runners. They're all into the adventure world. Yeah.
I'm curious. You've seen the list of some of the folks that I've interviewed here on the podcast. Are you related to any of them?
No, no.
because I've interviewed a handful of folks from Ecuador that do some pretty cool things, including a mountain climber that lives right there in Ecuador, and so okay, very, very cool. So then you ended up going to school. I also wanted to ask, did all of your siblings have the opportunity to go on to further education as well? And how did you choose the path that you chose compared to what they were doing?
It's interesting. All of them had the opportunity. My father always made clear that we could not study abroad because of the expense. And I became a Galapagos guide when I was 18 years old.
Oh,
I went to the Galapagos as a senior in high school and fell in love with the islands and found my path. And so I said to my father, Dad, I'm going to the Galapagos. I have applied to the guides course. They have accepted me and I'm going. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, and why not? He said, I am not going to give you money for it. And I said, but you gave me a car. I'm going to sell the car you gave me. And with that, I'm going to go. And so I became a Galapagos guide when I was 18. And I guided.
So was he excited about that? Was his resistance just around the financial part of it? Or did he have other reasons that he didn't want you to go to the Galapagos?
No, he was really scared because for him, Galapagos was not known. Being an architect who never really focused in nature besides the adventure travel, my dad thought, oh my gosh, my girl going to the islands so far away. And what's going to happen? And how is she going, because my friend and I, who went to Galapagos to take the guides course in 1979, we lived in a little bamboo hut. There was not much in the Galapagos in those days. And it was beautiful, beautiful. Puerto Ayora, the island of Santa Cruz, Academy Bay, has one village called Puerto Ayora. It only had one block, the main road, and one block behind.
Oh, wow.
We were 6,000 inhabitants in the whole archipelago. It was magical. It was the most beautiful experience. So
wow.
I was just to finish, I was guiding for a year on a big ship, the Buccaneer, and my clients would say, have you thought of further education? And I said, yes, of course. This is just part of my life. And then is how I got invited to go study at the American University.
Okay, so tell us more about that. You said how I got invited. So how did you go from guiding on the ship?
Yeah, I was guiding on the boat. A big group of alumni of American University came to the boat. I guided them. They really liked the way I could interpret nature. And one of the professors said, you need to go into further education. You cannot just be a guide. I would like to have you under my wing. And I said, but it's really expensive and I don't think I can afford it. Also, at that time, I had not taken the SAT. And he said, doesn't matter. We'll find a way. We'll find a way that you can work in the university and make some money and have some money from backup, like from my family. And we will skip the SAT until you're already enrolled, and then you'll take the SAT. So imagine how that was. He opened doors to me, like boom.
Wow.
But that was even more difficult for my dad to accept. That was so difficult for him. And he said, no, you're not going. It's so expensive. Washington, D.C. And I said, Dad, but they're inviting me and they're opening doors for me, and I'm going to go. And I didn't have much money in savings. And so he said, well, this time you're going to find your way. Not, and I said, well, with my savings. But I couldn't stay more than a semester. It was too expensive. And then winter came, and I'm from Ecuador, Ecuadorial sun, and then, oh gosh, coats and jackets, and it was I had to invest so much money just to survive that I called my father. I had applied to University of California, Santa Cruz to move to California. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, all I need is your bank statements, nothing else. And he said, all you will have is your ticket to come back. So that was excellent, because you know what I did? I decided, okay, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to become a diver. I will go visit University of California, Santa Barbara, University of California, Santa Cruz. I will get to know the people and see if eventually I can come back for graduate school. So I actually took about 3 months traveling around California, became a diver, returned back to Ecuador, went back to the Galapagos and started diving. Can you imagine not only being a guide on a big ship, but then a diver from sailboats? It was just magical.
Yeah.
And then I enrolled into the University Católica, the Catholic University in Quito, to study biology. And I said to my dad, Dad, thank you for bringing me back. No better country than Ecuador to study biology, because Ecuador is a small country in the planet, but it's in the middle of the world, and it's influenced by the fact that we have the Humboldt Current, cold waters, the Andes. We have so much biodiversity in this country. We have more biodiversity in a tiny country than the world in general. Yeah. Because we've got the Andes in the middle, making a wall and creating speciation from the coastline to the jungle. So imagine. So I loved it. I made the best of it. I studied in the Galapagos. I became an assistant in the field. I lived in different islands studying mockingbirds, studying albatrosses. I was sailing, I was diving, I was leading trips, and I was studying.
That is so cool, because I can imagine, maybe other biology students back in Washington, D.C. or California, just trying to imagine what it would be like, just struggling to, how do I get one semester, in Ecuador? How do I get 1 week on Galapagos? To go see all these things that they're learning about, and you were just completely immersed in it.
Exactly. I had everything on a platter. I mean, imagine. And whenever I needed money, I went back to the islands, and I was guiding freelance at that time. And so I could, make my own income, study, have fun, go do field work in the rainforest. I mean, the best opportunity ever. So my dad was a wise man.
Even if it was kind of ulterior motives that maybe he had for having you a little bit closer, but it actually it reminds me of a few stories where, we grow up in one area and we've got everything we need right around us, but we don't see it, and we sometimes will leave going on a quest for what it is we really want. And then we find ourselves back where we started and realizing, like for you, I mean, the Galapagos, in my mind, is where so much biology, science theories with Darwin and all that it's kind of the mecca, I would think, for somebody that wants to learn anything about biology. So, and there you were. So it's very cool. Yeah. That's a great story. So then you continued to go to school as well. Did you end up going back for graduate school, or what did that look like?
No, what ended up happening is I decided to do 1 year in university and 1 year in the islands. So it took me 8 years to get my first degree.
Very cool.
That was fun. That was fun. You know, I was only in my 20s. I was making the best of life. So I was guiding in the Galapagos and studying. And one time an opportunity came up. I was going, every time I was in the islands, I would go to the Darwin station. And I would go to the Darwin station and I will see what they had available, if I could be an assistant in the field or if I could go to apply for a scholarship. And then Bermuda Biological Station actually had a scholarship for the summer. So I talked to the director of the Darwin Station and said, would you give me a letter of reference? And I got a letter of reference from the university and I got a full scholarship. So that same year, talk about adventure. That same year, I went to Bermuda, but one of my clients, a Swiss lady, gave me 3,000 francs as a tip.
Wow.
So I could visit Europe. But she made a point. She said, this money is so you can visit Europe. So I said, wow, can I use part of the money to buy my ticket to Bermuda? And she said, of course. So I went. Quito, New York, Bermuda. Did a course on marine invertebrates. Then went to Holland, and then I traveled around Europe and then went back home. So it took me about 6 months to do all of that. It was magical.
What a dream. Just, some of these experiences that you've had, so many people would just love to have those. And then that's why it's always so fascinating to interview folks like yourself. So that's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing all that.
I consider myself a very, very lucky person. All the opportunities that come up, And so I finished my career, but when I finished my first degree, I was already pregnant. I had done a dissertation in marine invertebrates in the Galapagos Islands. The father of my children, we actually were diving morning, afternoon on the western side of Isabella Island, collecting information on the distribution of marine invertebrates. What a fascinating project. And so when I defended my thesis, I was already 5 months pregnant, expecting my first daughter, and that stopped me from going to graduate school.
Sure. Yeah.
It
All right.
matter,
So was that right around the time you started, working more as a tour operator, as the agency, and quit guiding, or did you continue guiding for a while, or?
No, then us, because he was also a travel guide, he would either be home or I would be home, and he would be guiding, let's say in Patagonia or Peru or the rainforest, and I will be with the children. And then he'll come back, and then I will go either to Galapagos, to Peru, or the rainforest. And so we actually had in a 10-year time 2 little girls, both of us traveling, and we didn't even think of opening a travel agency at that time. So I was, in fact, decided to stop guiding for a while and started working for a foundation that was doing research in Ecuador. And then I became an environmental interpreter and started working in the rainforest of Ecuador. I worked in 3 national parks, developing all their interpretation plan for tourism. And in the coast of Ecuador in 1 national park, and in the Andes of Ecuador in 1 national park. I had 5 national parks under my wing and my
Wow.
responsibility. It was beautiful, but I didn't earn much money. But what I earned is, whoa, the best experience. And I got to know my country. I mean, to tell you, to actually go and explore new trails in Sangay National Park, leaving from the jungle and going up to the highlands. In fact, Sangay volcano right now is erupting. Imagine all that, to hear the rumbling of a volcano, to walk through forests that had never been opened before. I just, when I'm telling you this, I think I should write a book.
I was literally just sitting here thinking, wow, what a storyteller. Just the way you share it. And for those of our listeners that can't see your face, you've been smiling this entire time that we've been on the call, and it's infectious. I'm just sitting here smiling back at you and just listening to all this. I agree. So when will you release the book?
It'll take me time. But life's still going and strong. Yeah. And so as when I just to finish my my decade when I had the two little girls growing up, I realized that one of them was starting to become kind of insecure and becoming a very, like a crybaby. And I thought, there's something going on. I need to pay attention. I decided to be a mother and I need to pay attention. So I noticed that if she was injured or sad, she wouldn't come to me. She would go to the maid, to the lady that helped me raise my children. Beautiful woman, beautiful. But then I thought, this is wrong. It's just not right. So that's when I said to Jonathan, you probably have interviewed my ex-husband, Jonathan Green. He's an adventure traveler all over the world.
Well, it sounds like somebody I need to chat with. Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely. His stories are amazing. Anyway, so I said to Jonathan, we need to stop these constant going and coming and going and coming. And so he said he still needed to keep traveling around the world, and he started guiding in Antarctica. And then is when I said, no, I'm opening a travel agency that will sell adventure travel. Because, I may not travel as much anymore, but every time I design a trip for my clients, I'm traveling.
Yes.
I'm traveling. I'm seeing every place. I mean, making research on the different places. And I develop beautiful experiences for people. And that's why after 24 years, we're still going strong.
Very, very, very cool. And I see all the connections, and it wasn't maybe a direct path, but it all makes sense. Just as I listened to your story, every step along the way kind of makes sense. And, we listened to all this amazing stuff in your story, and I'm sure there were some very difficult times. I can read in between the lines on some of the stuff that must have been very difficult. What was the most difficult part for you along the way to get to kind of where you started to where you are, that you're comfortable sharing with the millions of people listening to this?
Yeah. Everybody that goes through a process of a divorce, that's a difficult situation. But it was a clean divorce, because I must say, and I'm happy to share this with whoever is listening, because when you make a commitment to be together with somebody, and that somebody does not stay next to you, doesn't follow your path, and starts a new path, it's better to say, have your freedom. Have your freedom, because otherwise it just, we became strangers under the same roof. Because see, he was traveling, I was traveling. He was traveling, I was traveling. I was doing my things, he was doing his things. We were trying to reconnect. We had 3 beautiful children, because then Sebastian came when I had already opened the travel agency. And Jonathan was gone most of the time. And so nothing better for me and my children than to actually say to Jonathan, go fly. And fly, do whatever you want with your life, and let's be friends. You know?
Right.
That is the main point.
And in a very real sense, when the two of you met and your large portion of your time together was that lifestyle of traveling and going. So when your direction changed, because I would suggest maybe your direction changed more than his direction, he just continued to do what he'd always been doing. So really it was your direction that changed, which created a situation where he maybe needed to kind of let you go your direction as well. So it's very much, it's interesting. I can relate to some of that in some of my own life stories and divorce that I went through as well. So thank you for sharing that.
But it's so interesting that you actually say that, because my direction definitely changed. I needed to settle down. I needed to drop an anchor. I needed to give stability to my children. It would have been fun if both of us had done that, but he couldn't stop. He has that, he's still traveling, and he's still going to the Arctic and Antarctica and Indonesia and you name it. So good for him. I'm happy for him. But it's time. Nothing is better than to actually see things with a clear mind. Do not become obsessed, and say, have your freedom. Enjoy life. And, we relate really well. We have 3 beautiful children together. He has a new partner, and I'm really happy for that. But we're happy. What does one need in life? Freedom, happiness, peace. And that's what we both have. But I have an anecdote that I would like to share, because when I had my 3rd child, I had 2 partners in my company, Senderos Naturales, a couple. We were 2 couples. And my baby was born, and Jonathan had a trip. And my partners decided to go to Namibia. And I said, but I have a baby. And they said, oh, but Maca, the opportunity to go to Namibia doesn't come very, very often. And I said, it's true. So my baby, my 3rd child, would go to the office with me since he was a baby. I mean, a little baby. And I would breastfeed him, and I would work, and he would sleep. And so, he was already working in an office since he was born. But I tell you, I had some collapses because I overworked, Yeah. In those days, we didn't have what we have now, the digital life, working from home, working remote. That would have been perfect. I would have worked remote, but we didn't have Zoom or all these incredible, how you call them, networks,
just
whatever.
Yeah, the tools and the
internet.
The things. I mean, the things that are making this conversation possible right now is, as you sit in Ecuador, I'm in Colombia, and we're having this conversation, and it's beautiful. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I tell you that was probably one of the hardest things that I had to go through when I was a mom and a CEO of a travel agency that was just beginning. And so, there's always ups and downs. Life is not easy. In 24 years, the pandemic and the quarantine and all the money that our clients had paid to do cruises and visit Peru and Colombia. But I was very careful. So all the money that had been advanced, it was kept in the bank, untouched.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, the quarantine came and I kept that. And so I was able to refund most of my clients. And some clients said, no, I would rather postpone it for the future. In fact, we're having 4 Australians coming this year that postponed since 2020. And that would be the last account. And we closed the accounts from 2020. Can you believe it? Just now. Yeah.
Well, that was quite a disruption for, pretty much everybody I've been chatting with. And of course, it was life-changing for myself as well. And I can look back and say, well, some really great things came out of it for me personally. But there were also some huge challenges along the way. And it was a very, very difficult time for all of us.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic came with all of the things that came along with that, obviously you were spending some time, dealing with refunds and trying to work on postponing. But other than that, what was I'm just curious, what was your daily life like in the middle of the pandemic in Quito?
Well, I tell you this. In 2017, I decided I needed something new in my life. And I went to India and I went to Rishikesh and became a yoga instructor.
Oh.
So I started teaching yoga at the same time that I was a CEO because my children were growing up and life was easier. 2020 came and we were all quarantined. One of my children came from Italy. Another one came from France. The other one broke her knee skiing in Europe and had to be home. I was looking after her after the operation. And all of a sudden, I had my chicks. They came back to me. And I tell you, I live in a beautiful place. I don't live in the city of Quito. I live in a valley 45 minutes away from Quito, in a gated community, nature, waterfalls, rivers, swimming pools. Imagine, we were trapped in paradise. And so I started recording my yoga, and I started uploading some of it in YouTube. And then I started teaching online. And so for me, life didn't stop. For me, it was like, okay, I would dedicate 3 times of my day to sort out problems with my clients. And the rest of the day was freedom, yoga, fun times with my children. And so that 2020 for me was a magical year. It was for me, it's sad to say that other people died and people went through horrible depressions and that. And, we must be compassionate for what others went through. But in my life, everything was flourishing. And I did not close the company, even though we went down to minus, let's say, $30,000. I decided to put it, how could I say the right word? I put it to sleep with the IRS. Not the IRS in Ecuador, but SRI in Ecuador. So it went to sleep. I didn't need to be declaring monthly. And then Jonathan, my ex-husband, has a travel agency with his new wife that they do scuba diving in the Galapagos. He was the very first company to actually bring people to the islands in the middle of the 2020, in August of 2020.
Okay.
And he called me and said, Macarena, would you like to do the land services for my clients? And I said, yes, please, we need some income. So that's how we started waking up again. And so it started in August 2020. by end of 2020, we already had accounts for the Galapagos Islands and Peru. By 2021, we already had Peru and Patagonia. So it's amazing how it's almost like it woke up, but with a lot more effort, because now it's going to the office, doing digital, online work. It's like we're working full time. It's like never ending.
Would you say it got busier than it was before the pandemic?
It got 2023 has been the best year ever for my company.
Okay. And I've asked this of a few other people, and there's some talk about this in the industry, but what do you think it is that?
Well, in our particular case, it's because a good friend of mine had to close his company. And he was specialized in trekking in Ecuador. And when George closed his company, he passed on his accounts to Senderos. But not only that, he passed on one of his best workers, who now is one of my partners in the business.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Because he was really concerned, and he said, I don't want to leave her with nothing. Would you hire her? And I said, of course, because, she knows the accounts. She knows the people that are behind the agencies in Europe, in the States. And then, funny enough, her husband was my classmate since I was 6 years old. And it's amazing. And her husband said, Maca, I would like to invest. I don't want you to hire my wife. I want my wife to be part of the company. And because we were low in cash, I said, of course, the money that you invest will be reinvested in the company. And with that, we also had cash flow to continue.
Right.
So
sounds like a win-win solution.
Yeah. And this year, I must tell you, Paulina, my partner, brought 120 Canadians to do trekking in the Andes of Ecuador. The most incredible trip. I mean, you don't know, camping. And we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the campsites already there. So it was like putting together
everything. Was this one
everything.
group? Macarena, this was one group?
We decided to part them in 4 groups of 30, 30. They overlapped 2 days. So the first group came in, they did their trekking to Paso Choa, and then the second group arrived. And we kind of went like that till everybody finished, like, again, overlapped 2 days, and then they went to the Galapagos.
Okay.
So it was, for us and for all of us, was a lot of work. I mean, work that we didn't expect. But for me, I tell you, the best thing was that nobody was injured. Nobody had to be evacuated. One lady had to come, she couldn't stay in the altitude. She couldn't handle altitude. But I brought her to my house. So then she could do, she could enjoy my beautiful place.
That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting, kind of the way you've grown the business, especially through, what happened with COVID. And we're recording this in January 2024. And I think we need to discuss a little bit about Ecuador, a little bit about politics, a little bit about what's going on in the world. For anybody that's listening to this, that's like, I've been wanting to go to Ecuador. I'm just not sure what things are going on. You're there. You know what's going on better than I ever could. So what do our listeners need to know about Ecuador's safety, security, and what's going on in the country now?
Okay, this is a very important question, because Ecuador is still functioning. with total normality. The procedure or the decision that the president had to take was super necessary because these drug cartels were working along the coast of Ecuador doing whatever they wanted. Flying here, flying there. Imagine this little plane arrives in Puerto Villamil in Isabela Island in Galapagos. It arrives in the night. Who knows to do what? It's confiscated, they punched the tires, and the police was keeping control of this plane because obviously it was suspicious. And guess what? 2 weeks later, it flew out. So there's so many people involved, corrupt policemen, corrupt militaries, corrupt judges. If our president, a young president, did not make these incredible decisions of declaring war and calling them terrorists, there would not be a solution. However, having said that, which is important to clarify, Ecuador is still as normal. We're still receiving people. We're still taking them to Otavalo. We're still hiking up to Cotopaxi. We are. I would never take people in this time to Esmeraldas province along the coast, the northern coast, not to Manabí. As much as I love Machalilla National Park and the whale watching, it's not time to go to Manabí, and it's not time to go down to Guayaquil and the south. Otherwise, the whole country, it's normal. We are, in fact, I tell you this, we can be more relaxed now because we know that we're being protected. All the militaries are out. The police is doing controls all the time along the Pan American Highway where the drug comes from the north of Ecuador or Colombia. They're patrolling. Any suspicious car, any suspicious movement in homes, it's being alienated and checked. So I would say, don't be scared to come to Ecuador because we are still working normally. I, for instance, go to Quito, to Cumbayat, I go shopping, I go to the theater, I go to the movies, I go dancing, I have weddings. Life goes on. And
I think I heard you say, really what I heard in your words was in certain parts of the country, there's some issues, probably not a good time to go. But overall, I actually heard you say that you felt a little safer right now than you did maybe 6 months ago.
Of course.
Because, right. So that's your perspective. I recognize there may be other people there in Ecuador that don't agree. And I understand that. And, but yeah, it sounds like you're saying it's actually a really good time to come but probably work with someone knowledgeable like yourself to make sure they're not wandering off into some of the other areas where there is a little bit more conflict. Is that right?
Of course. I mean, I would never promote in this time, and even though it's sad not to promote Manabí province, which is beautiful and has Machalilla National Park, it's not the time. It's simply not the time. I am not going to expose my clients to anything that may mean danger. Okay. But we feel safer. We definitely do because, we know that we're being protected from all sides and that they're finally finding so many of these gangs. And they're finding things that you would never believe below ground, under pig, how you call chancheras, where you have the pigs, stalls or pig. The
pen? The pit where
Yeah. Underneath, there's a bunker full of weapons, 20,000 tons of cocaine. Absurd. I mean, amounts that you wouldn't even think. It's all stored there, ready to then be taken by a small plane and being dropped into the ocean because We know that this is Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. It's not just Ecuador.
Yeah.
See,
It's just,
Ecuador
it
right
sounds like
now,
just that Ecuador's doing something about it right now.
correct.
Right.
At this moment, you know, you live in Colombia. Colombia had to do it as well. Colombia was going through difficult times before. But anyway, what I want everybody to hear, if they wish to come to South America, if they want to travel in Peru, in Patagonia, in Chile, they should feel completely free and relaxed to do so. Remember the time when Peru had the shining path?
Mm-hmm.
When at that time I was a trip leader for wilderness travel, a company in the United States. And in those days, I was leading trips to Peru. In fact, I was in Lima the day that the Japanese embassy was taken hostage by the Shining Path and the Tupac Amaru group, you know, that. But I was there and I had clients and we went to the airport and nothing happened because the actual problem was happening near the Japanese embassy. So this is something that we need to inform the world. It's true. The media has to inform about the news. The news is that the Ecuadorian president declared war to the criminals and the drug traffickers and so forth. However, we as individuals are fine. Our homes are fine. The trucks from the coast bringing fruit and vegetables, they're coming. It's not like we've stopped. We're still going strong.
So if I wanted to, because I kind of live the nomadic lifestyle, I'm in Colombia right now. I wouldn't say I live here, but I like to spend a lot of time. But if I wanted to hop on a plane and fly down to Quito this weekend and stay in Quito for a few weeks, or maybe even go down to Cuenca or something like that, it sounds like you'd say, just come on down.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Definitely. And
Very
in
cool.
fact, I have 4 different accounts coming up. None of them canceled. We keep them informed. Every week we send them the letter from our Minister of Tourism. We keep them informed of what's happening. And I tell my clients, this is something I've always been extremely honest. If I see any danger, I will say, stop. Let's postpone, let's cancel, let's find ways. I would never put anybody in danger. And well, I do have one lucky thing. Senderos Naturales doesn't only sell Ecuador. We sell all of South America. We
right. And I'm happy we brought that up. Thank you for that was on my list of things I wanted to make sure we made clear. So let's do a quick recap. I think you were just getting ready to, of kind of your specialty areas and other options that you have available.
So when I was saying that we sell all of South America is because I was a trip leader all around South America, and I got to know this beautiful continent full of contrasts. So we take people to Chile, to the Atacama Desert, to the Bolivian Altiplano, and to Uyuni salt flat, to Titicaca Lake. From there, we venture into Peru. Peru is so magical with its people. It's just one of the most beautiful places to visit. And see, what we're doing and people really like is that we put together 2 or 3 countries. So Australians arrive to Chile, they like to visit Chile, and then they like to go to Argentina, from Argentina to Brazil, from Brazil to Ecuador, or to Colombia, or to Peru. So, and we organize all of that. That's why
that'd be a pretty cool trip. That would be a pretty cool trip. Yeah. That's and you've got, because we're going to have your website address in the show notes. If somebody goes to your website, they can get a pretty good feel for what you do there. Is that right? Or is that the best place to send them? Yeah, because see, people can see that we sell Patagonia, we sell
the Iberá marshes in Argentina, Iguazu Falls, Brazil. We sell Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia. And our webpage is going to start being reconstructed in April, but right now it's still there as it is. And they can see all the magical places that we sell. Because we do personalized, tailor-made trips, not all itineraries are upfront. Because see, if people see the upfront itinerary and the price, they say, I'll sign up to this. No, what we do is we cater based on budget, interest, time of the year, and either individuals or family groups or friends.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, we have had times when the border of Chile and Argentina has been closed. And we've been in Torres del Paine, but our clients need to go to Calafate and Perito Moreno. And if the border is closed, we charter planes. I mean, there's no limit. We organize what the client is able to afford and wants to do, you know?
Okay.
So
they can get a feel for some stuff on the website, but they really need to have a conversation with you or your partner or somebody on the team to really kind of customize something. And I mean, just listening to you speak, clearly you're very familiar with, and I've worked in the past sending a lot of clients to that part of the world. So listening to you, it's very, very clear that you know what you're talking about. I love that you're so willing to share, stories about your divorce and stories about, your views and perspectives on what's going on in Ecuador, and just the honesty that comes through in your voice. And of course, I'm able to sit here and look at your face as we're having this conversation, and that's beautiful as well. Now I'm going to give you a really easy question. Okay. Senderos Naturales. What is that? What's the translation? And what does it mean? And why did you choose that name?
Because Senderos Naturales means nature trails.
Nature trails. Okay, that makes sense.
So
and has that been the name of the agency since the very beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is because when I had to leave my freedom, my free life of traveling and exploring and doing research, because I did a lot of research as well. When I had to stop doing that, all I could think of, I need to be connected to nature. And the best way to be connected to nature is by following nature paths, natural trails. And it is true. We do sell Rio de Janeiro. We do sell culinary Lima. We sell colonial Quito, the beauty of, UNESCO World Cultural Site. We do sell cities, but every time there's a touch of nature, every time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you go to Guayaquil Port, we take our people to Cerro Blanco. So they explore the dry forest. So they see the iguanas on the trees. So they see the parrots. This is so beautiful because when you have so many ecosystems in one little place, you can see so much.
One thing that I found very interesting with South America, and specifically, I'm spending a lot of time in Medellin, and it's a city, and sometimes I work, out of a shared workspace up on the top of one of the tall buildings, and I can look out the window and I might see a couple scarlet macaws flying by, or the green parrots, or looking down at the stand of bamboo shoots or the trees, or walking home, mangoes will fall down on the sidewalk next to me as I'm walking. And, and this is the city. There's so much nature. I remember I was so excited the first time I found that I saw leafcutter ants. I was in one of the kind of more built up areas of the city, and there were leaf cutter ants walking down the tree, in a trail carrying big chunks of leaves. And for me, that's something I would have seen in, National Geographic or, in a documentary or so. I was so excited that here I am in this big city and I'm seeing all this stuff. So I appreciate the connection to what you're saying. It's hard to get away from nature in most of the places that I visited in Latin America. So I get it. Very cool.
Yeah.
Macarena, I think we could I still had a list of things that we were going to go over. We're going to need to come back and have more conversations about this. And I'm curious, is there anything I forgot to ask or I should have asked that we really need to bring up before we wrap it up? Anything that our listeners just need to hear that we haven't touched on?
Actually, I think we've gone through most of it. It is important that our clients or people that are interested in coming to South America, Ecuador, know that we're here to develop the itinerary together with them, to design the itinerary together with them. That I love to chat with them first, and then from there we go on. So the communication is very, very important. And look, that we're here, we're ready to keep creating beautiful life experiences for people.
Because that's a great way to end it. So, Macarena, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your stories, insights, and it was a fascinating conversation. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And I will have to come down and visit you very, very soon. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Oh, come. You're more than welcome. You should see the beauty today. The sky is completely blue. The eastern side of the Andes are in front of me. In the back, you have Pululawa Crater, Cotacachi Peak. I mean, it's just the avenue of the volcanoes in Ecuador. So come and visit me. You're more than welcome.
I mentioned that we should do some more episodes, and I think that next time we get to do that in person. So I will start working on getting myself down there and look forward to meeting you.
Thanks, course, me too.
Appreciate
me
it.
Too.
All
Thank you
bye-bye.
so much. Bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.